and welcome to episode 2 of Dreamspace TV, the Brainwave series, here from One Microsoft Place in Dublin. I'm Corey, and that's Amanda.
In our last episode, we looked at AI, what it is, the history of AI. We actually went back to the origin. And then we also looked at the components of AI. Specifically, we delved into data and data sets. We saw data sets in sports and industry, and we even put our data analytical skills to the test. By the end of this episode, you should be able to explain what an algorithm is, design an algorithm to solve a problem using pseudocode or code that utilizes the parts of an algorithm, identify coding elements in an algorithm, and explain how chatbots use data sets and algorithms to support users.
So Amanda, you actually mentioned there that we are going to be designing algorithms, which is part of a wider skill called computational thinking, which is actually broken into 4 different parts. And we've used some of these computational thinking skills in our previous episode, but let's go through them here.
So Corey, the 4 parts are decomposition, pattern recognition, abstraction, and algorithm design, which we've mentioned already. Yeah. Now, as you said, we've actually used these a lot already, specifically in our data set activity in episode 1. We really needed you to utilize the first 3. So if you think about it, decomposition, you had a large data set and you had to break down something very big into kind of smaller chunk sizes.
Yeah.
So that like making conclusions, for example, piece that everyone did. We have pattern recognition.
This is what I love, pattern recognition, because I feel like you can actually identify things that are happening in data set and find out information about it. Like that there was only 2 pop songs.
Exactly.
Like, I was like, oh, love
yes.
that.
So you're looking for patterns, you're finding them and even reporting on them in the case of the data set activity we did. Abstraction then, so abstraction is just knowing what's important from what's not.
Yeah, so like just for another example, like when you're looking at the popularity column in the data set, like the speechiness and the loudness, none of that was important. I was literally just looking at popularity.
Exactly, so knowing when you need to analyze certain things and when you don't need that information at all. And then the last one, as we said, is algorithm design. So that's our focus for today. So Corey, what are algorithms?
Well, algorithms are basically just lists of instructions that we use to complete tasks or solve problems.
Exactly, and I'm sure everyone watching knows we use these every single day. So you could write algorithms for tying shoelaces, for following a recipe, for putting together a flat pack if something you purchased. So literally that step-by-step list of instructions, as you said. Now, Corey, myself and yourself had a chat over breakfast about an algorithm. So even though I'm sure and I'm confident most people know how humans can follow algorithms, we're going to just run through an example of this, which is basically like a recipe. And that recipe is for poached eggs.
Yes.
We chatted about this morning. We were having our breakfast as always. And I was mentioning to Corey that I am atrocious at making poached eggs. And this is a true story. I cannot do it. I fail every single time, whereas you?
Whereas I am a poached egg connoisseur. Like, I'm amazed at making poached eggs.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm biased again, but I am. They're delicious.
So I said to Corey, right, well, I think you should share the love.
Yeah.
I think you should let everybody know how they can make a poached egg. So let's do this as our human algorithm activity before we actually look at how these things are used in technology.
Okay, are you ready for this?
I am ready, and I hope everyone's taking note.
Okay, so first and most important point, get an egg. Okay, or 2. I like to have 2 poached eggs because I think they're delicious. But very importantly, it has to be room temperature. It can't just come straight from the fridge.
That was news to me.
Yeah, see, this is where you're going wrong already.
Yeah.
And then add like 500 milliliters of water to a pot and make sure that your hob is on max temperature. Okay, because what you want to do then is bring it to a boil, which feels like it's taken forever. But what's that saying? A watched kettle never boils.
Yeah,
so
or a watched pot never boils.
Yeah, so just like pitter potter around, don't just be waiting around. Then what you want to do is, once it's boiled, you have to bring it down to a simmer. So you have to bring it to like midpoint simmer, okay? And then what you do is, this is key, right? I don't think you were doing this either.
No, I wasn't.
You have to like stir the pot, right? So what that does is like it makes the water go in like a spiral. And then you crack the egg into the pot. And what that does is, I'm so passionate about this, it makes the white of the egg go over the yolk of the egg, giving it that like poachedness, if that's the word. And then you basically leave it in there for like between 2 and 5 minutes, depending on how you like your egg. And then finally, crucial step, obviously take out the egg, yeah? But you have to leave it sitting for like 2 minutes. People get too eager, and I get it because they're lovely. But you can't just like take the egg out and then like put the knife through it straight away. No, you have to like let it cook within itself.
Fantastic,
bravo.
There you go. I would give you a standing ovation if I wasn't already standing. So there you go, everybody. If you want to know how to make a perfect poached egg, there's your list. You can screenshot that right now. I personally am going to put this algorithm to the test later on because I have failed every single time. And if this works for me, I will be very surprised. One thing I did love about it was you were kind of explaining it there, but when you wrote this out, you were really specific about like amounts and how long and so on. So that makes sense too, because algorithms, not only should they be in the right order and right sequence, they should also be really, really specific as well, which I'm sure everyone's aware of. Now, that's like an algorithm we're going to follow as humans. But what we're going to be doing is looking at how do we bring algorithms into technology, so like into a computer program using code. And generally, before we go from this step to an actual coding environment, what we often do is we use pseudocode.
So important.
Yeah, so pseudocode is basically us kind of writing out the instructions, but using kind of more common language that a computer would understand. And once we've kind of got our heads around that, then we can go and actually add the code together. Now, I'm going to go through the pseudocode now, and what I would flag already is that this is important because you're going to be doing an activity on this in a minute, so it will be important for you to understand what I'm doing in the pseudocode to help you with that activity. So Corey, I think what we'll do is we'll just take the timer element of our instructions here for our pseudocode, so that it's very specific. I feel like a timer is a piece of technology that we use a lot. So instead of doing the whole thing out, let's just focus in on, right, what would happen if we built out the instructions for a timer in a coding environment. So that would be what our pseudocode is based on.
Okay.
And you had talked about leaving the egg simmer for 2 to 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So I think we'll pick a specific amount of time.
Yeah.
So we'll say...
Yeah, it has to be specific because it's for technology. Let's go with like 3 minutes.
3 minutes, perfect. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through the pseudocode. Remember, I know I've said it already, but you are going to need this for the next activity, so please do make sure you pay attention to this. It's going to help you. So the first instruction is going to be that we're going to set our timer to 3 minutes. That's what Corey has said she wants to leave her egg simmering for. Now, timer, what this represents here is something called a variable. And don't worry if you haven't done coding before, variables are just something we create in our programming environment or our coding environment. And what they do is they store information, and that information can update. So in this case, our timer is going to store this piece of information, which is that it is holding on to 3 minutes for the moment at the start of the program.
Yeah.
Or in the case of our program, it's going to work in seconds.
Yeah, so 180 seconds.
So that's going to be 180 seconds, exactly. Okay, so our variable timer is going to be storing 180 seconds when it begins. Now, what we're going to tell the program to do next is, I suppose it's like a timer, you're going to like start the timer somehow. There needs to be an action. So I think what we'll do is we'll say hit a button.
Hit a button.
So we're going to hit a button and that's going to start the timer. So how do we actually like trigger, I suppose, this event that the timer begins, apart from hitting the button? This is the type of code we're going to need. So let me walk you through what this actually means, because I know there's a lot of words here. So the first one says while. This word while is a loop. So a loop is basically a coding concept that we use that actually tells a sequence of code to keep repeating itself. So in this case, this loop and this sequence of code will keep happening when this is still true.
Okay.
So what I mean by that is, while the timer, so whatever number is being stored by this, is greater than 0, this will keep happening.
Okay.
Over and over and over again in a loop. All right. Now, if we take what the timer is at the start, it's going to be storing what number?
180.
180. So when we get to this line of code, it's going to say, okay, is 180 greater than 0? Yes. Okay. Yes, true. And then it's going to activate and see like this piece of code, this sequence of code here. So this is going to be true, so it's going to do these things. It's going to show us the number it's storing, which is 180.
Yeah.
It's going to take away 1.
Yeah.
So it's going to go down to 179. It's going to pause for 1 second because we need to actually have that timing element within it. And then it's going to loop, because that's what it does, back to the top. Now the timer number is storing 179.
Okay.
Okay, or the variable, the timer, is 179. So when it comes here and checks again, is 179 greater than 0?
Yes.
Yes. So it does the same thing again. And it will continue to do that, everyone, until it is?
0.
0. Yeah. So basically, ultimately, it's going to get to a point where it's say 1. Is 1 greater than 0? Yes. So it'll show number 1. It will take away number 1. It will wait for a second, but it's going to now be 0. And when it comes back up to check, is this still true? It'll see no. And that means the loop is ended.
Yeah.
So it will break out of that code and move to the next step, which is simply remove the egg. Because as we said, we wait for 3 minutes and then we are done. So now what we want to do is transfer this into a coding environment. So we're going to be using Make Code for Microbit. And Corey, I think you have it open there, do you?
I do.
So I'm going to just disconnect and let you connect on the screen.
Perfect. Okay, so now I am on makecode.microbit.org, and what I want to do here is I actually want to import the coding file that we are going to be working with. So I'm going to go over here to import a file, and I'm going to choose my file, and I have my file right here, microbit-algorithm. And once I open that up, you will see all of the code that you will need, but it's obviously all jumbled up. It's not in order.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I want to do is basically just show everyone how you would connect the code, how you would test the code, and then I'm going to leave it there. I'm not going to give away anything else, okay? So I might start with this one here, which is show string, remove egg. Now, what I need to do here is I actually need to connect this code to our event block, which is on button A press. And what you'll realize is when I drop this in, it goes back to that blue color, okay? Because these are all grayed out at the moment because the program is trying to tell us there's something wrong here, there's a bug in our code because they're not connected, okay? Now, what's really important is at the end, when you unjumble all of this algorithm and put it together in the correct sequence, you'll need to test it out to see if it works.
Yeah, definitely.
So, how I'm going to test this out is my instruction is on button A pressed, show string, remove egg. So I'm going to press the button A over here on my microbit, and it's going to say remove egg. Now, we know from our instructions and from our pseudocode that that is not how we started. I'm going to take that out, and I'm going to leave it there.
Now it is your turn. We want you to sequence this algorithm. You can download the code file at the following link and open it up in makecode.microbit.org. Use the pseudocode for support and put that code back in sequence so that it completes its timer task for us. And when you're done, make sure to test it out. Good luck. So we hope you got on well there with the challenge of sequencing that algorithm back together. Obviously, what we wanted for you at the end was to be able to click on that button A and see a timer counting down. Now, we are going to go through this ourselves really quickly, Corey. I might get you to give me a hand as well.
Always.
And and see can we get this working. All right?
Let's do it.
So our first, obviously, button was ready for us was on button A. So that was going to be our first event block. And if you remember in our pseudocode, the very first thing we had to do was set the timer.
Yes.
So I'm going to go and grab that block, and that is going to be the first part of my sequence after I hit button A. So set the timer to 180, because if you remember, we said that we want this to be 180 seconds. Yeah?
Yeah.
That makes sense? That was line 1 in our pseudocode. Line 2 began with the word
while.
So I'm going to go down and grab my while block, which is a loop, remember?
Yeah.
And I'm going to pop that in. And actually, you can kind of see the colors here, and over here it's in loops, and you see this is a green block. So in MakeCode, that environment, it does show you the categories that these instructions sit into. Okay, so Corey, if you remember, it was while, and then it was monitoring something. So why will this loop keep happening? While
the timer is greater than 0.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get this block here. And this might be where some people may have been a bit unsure if they hadn't used something like MakeCode before, because this actually will slot inside this block like so. So now it says what we talked about. While the timer, so the number stored up here, is greater than 0, whatever is in here will take place, basically.
Perfect. Okay.
So nearly there, actually.
Yeah.
So what we want to happen is when it's greater than 0, we want to see the number. So we're going to say show us the number that is being stored by this variable timer.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we are going to take away 1, remember, because this is obviously going to be counting down. That's what timers should do. They should count down from wherever we started them. And then we are going to do a pause, because although our variable here says 180, that doesn't necessarily mean time.
Yes.
So the pause block brings in that time element that we want. Okay? If you remember, just a quick recap, while the number was greater than 0, it does these 3 things, and then it loops back up and it checks, is this still true? So until this is no longer greater than 0, these 3 things will keep happening.
Okay.
Okay? Obviously, when it gets to 0, as we said, it's going to stop. And that's when then we're going to say, take out your egg.
Yes.
Because that's what you told us. You were the connoisseur of the post checks. So I'm going to grab this here. Now, some people might have put this inside here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it will work, but it won't be necessarily accurate. So it is a bug.
Yeah.
It's like a logical error. So I'm going to put this outside my loop. Because if it's in here, it's going to happen during the while loop, which is going to basically, after 1 second, going to say, take out your egg. You know, so that's
wouldn't be a
gotta
very
pretty
nice
raw,
egg.
isn't it?
Yeah.
So I'm going to put that under here. I'm going to say show string, remove egg, and then enjoy.
Enjoy.
Voila, I'm
Love
done.
it.
And people might have had time to play around and see other things in here too. But just for time, let's click on A. And we see there's 180. And it's going to keep counting down. And we'll be here all day. But
Well, we'll be here for 3 minutes.
Yeah, we'll be here. Very good. I see what you did there. I'm going to just change this. Just a little quick hack here.
Okay.
I'm going to just change this to 3.
Oh,
just
see if it works.
Yeah, just to see if it works, just so we don't have to wait for the 3 minutes. So I'm going to click A again. 3, 2, 1. And now we should see.
I love it.
Remove egg and enjoy. So that's done.
Now, that was just a whistle-stop tour of Make Code for Microbit and coding in general, but we have lots more resources on coding if you want to develop your coding skills even further. Don't we, Amanda?
We do. And within that, you will have to do a lot of algorithm design. And ultimately, what we want to show you there is these things, algorithms, these instructions, that's what's behind all the technology we use all the time. But if we look at our focus for this series, which is AI, we did talk about how algorithms work with other things. And one of those things was data sets.
Yeah, so a really good example of data and algorithms working together is actually chatbots. And funny enough, I was on Dublin Airport website last night because I was looking for holidays. I'm in need of a holiday. And I noticed that they had a chatbot function. So I clicked into it because I was intrigued. I seen the speech bubble, but then I left it there. I was like, oh no, I'll wait for us to do this together.
Okay, so I've just logged on here myself.
Okay.
I'm having a look at the website. And I see exactly what you mean, bottom right corner here. And I think people will be familiar with this watching.
Yeah.
I'm sure anyone's gone to websites now. There are chatbots there. But what we want you to be thinking about now is, okay, what's actually controlling them? Remember, we're not just aware of the technology. We want to know how does that work. So let's click on it and really analyze how this chatbot works.
Yeah.
So Corey, what were you looking at here specifically? Of
Always.
course, flying away. Trying to get away from me probably, which, don't blame her.
Yeah.
So I'm going to click on flights and we'll see what it does. So if I click on flights, then this is the following question. So if we think about our coding terminology again, we're talking about like what we call conditional statements. You don't need to worry about too much, but basically if that action has happened where I've clicked on flight, then this is the follow-on action. And in this case, it's just telling me, type in like a flight number or an airline or anything like that.
Yeah.
I can actually come in here and type now. So I can actually say New York at 8 a.m.
Oh.
Enter. I don't even know if this is a real flight. It might tell me there's nothing found. I don't know. I've literally just made that up.
Oh.
There we go. So we have different flights, different airlines,
Cool.
different things coming up. So it goes and pulls it up. So when I've typed that, I typed New York at 8 a.m. So it's obviously pulled out the words New York and it's pulled the time, 8 a.m. And if those two things are mentioned, then
It will
seems
show
to
you
be
these.
pulling this information from obviously a data set it has
Yeah.
to say, here you go, which is kind of interesting.
Good.
So now is a good time to pause and for you to undertake an activity yourself. We want you to test out the Dublin Airport chatbot just like we did. Work with a partner and note the following: the sources of data for the chatbot, and also write out a simple algorithm for how this chatbot works using the keywords if and then. You can write this out in full or in pseudocode. So we're at the end of our episode now, and across the episode we looked at algorithms, what they are, where they're used, and how we actually create them, especially in computer programs. We finished off there by looking at data sets working alongside algorithms by looking at a chatbot.
Now, the thing is, Amanda, chatbots nowadays are being built to learn, and that's where machine learning comes in, and we're going to cover that in the next episode.
Looking forward to it, Corey. See you then. Bye.
Bye.
We didn't. So what are...
You have to be quicker with these.
Okay, sorry. I thought you knew it.
Never.
What a surprise. Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise. That was just a whistle stop.
You finished on a high.
Journey!
Which is those formulas. So we're at the end of our episode now. Chat to you then. Bye.
Bye.